Namaste to everybody and welcome once again. Today, we should discuss the last of our communication skills. We started this whole program on self-improvement with listening skills. In the previous 2 weeks, I have mentioned speech and silence, that is speaking, and then read, think, and use, that is the reading aspect. Today, we have to talk about writing. The topic which I have assigned to this part is writing as therapy. Therapy is treatment. If we have any problem, if we have any issue, then we take some medicine for it. And this medicine is what we call as therapy or treatment. So writing as therapy. Communication skills are very important. We call them as LSRW, I have mentioned earlier: listening, speaking, reading, writing. So all four are equally important, but writing is what we are talking about today, the last of these four skills. Why I wanted to talk to you about writing as therapy is because many of our mental or psychological or social issues, our emotional issues, all these can be solved if we cultivate the habit of writing. Therefore, writing is like a solution, not only for us. Many youngsters today read self-improvement books, I have mentioned already. Imagine the writer who has written self-improvement books is improving the younger generation. It is making the younger generation better by these self-help writing. So we are helping each other. We are also helping our own selves. My thrust is mainly on the second one, because the whole series is called self-improvement. I'm sure you remember that it is called self-improvement. And I'm sure by practicing, you can also do some self-improvement. It is possible that we look at writing in a different way. And then we realize that if we write, suppose we are very angry with somebody, we get very angry. The instinctive reaction is to shout at that person. But that is not therapeutic. If you shout, you feel unwell, you feel, ill, the other person feels hurt, and so on. So you take a piece of paper and you try to analyze your anger by saying, these are the reasons why I'm angry. This person has made this mistake, therefore I'm angry, and so on. Now, when you go on analyzing like this, when you think of all the mistakes which that person might have made and deserved your anger, very justifiable anger, but still you control yourself. You didn't create a conflict between the two of you. Instead, you wrote some things on a piece of paper. When you are hurt, somebody says something or you read something, a bad news comes, you are hurt. The usual reaction would be to lose yourself completely in sorrow, to start crying or shouting or breaking things or, cursing everybody. These are reactions to, grief. Again, instead of doing that, we can write. You must remember that great literature, which we often read, what we call as tragedy. This is based on a sad experience, but sad experience creatively expressed. It is expressed in such a way that it makes you sad, but it also teaches you a lesson. So writing has varieties of therapeutic uses, varieties of medicinal uses. Like we say, medicinal plant. They say if you have tulsi leaf during the pandemic, It is supposed to be making your immunity better. Similarly, we have many such ideas, and writing is also similar to that. It is medicinal in its value. We should practice it, because the more we practice it, it will be useful in our lives, professional, educational life, very important writing. Remember, always your exams are written exams. It's only when you go for a job that you have the oral interview. Otherwise, your school exams are usually all written exams. So writing is so important. Writing is the ultimate expression. So we need to practice writing. Now let us take some examples. I want to give you a very good example of writing for self-improvement. I have mentioned many times the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. The author, who calls himself M, only using an alphabet M, is actually Mahendranath Gupta. He was a headmaster in a school, very well educated, very much learned, but not very advanced spiritually. When he started going to visit Sri Ramakrishna in the temple of Dakshineshwar, he realized that here was a storehouse for his spiritual improvement. And he started writing a diary. Every day, whenever he visited the master, Sri Ramakrishna, he would go home, think, meditate on what all happened in that day, what all Sri Ramakrishna said, what others said. And from his recollection, he would note down verbatim, word for word, with beautiful descriptions. You can imagine that this, of course, was written in Bengali, but it was translated also into English by Swami Nikhilananda. And because it was translated into English, that also is writing, it has benefited numerous people in their spiritual quest. You can read it and you find that it is a storehouse of spirituality. A great science fiction writer, imagine, science fiction, very skeptical writer like Aldous Huxley wrote a foreword to this English gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. In Bengali, it is called Kathamrita, and it is available in all languages. I'm sure Marathi and Telugu and every other language, Hindi, it is available in all languages. So it has its own names in each language. So the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna was written, translated, and then it was, a foreword was written. All these give us a picture of what is happening in spirituality, or what is happening in the history of spirituality. So you can imagine how important writing is. It is on one side, therapy for Mahendranath Gupta, because he was writing for his personal benefit. Then he was told by Swami Vivekananda, he was appreciated by Holy Mother Sharda Devi by saying, write more, write more. Then he wrote all those diaries he transcribed, and he wrote this big book. It has many volumes. This comes as a therapy for himself. He became a realized soul. It became therapy for others because whoever reads it also gets benefited. So writing is therapeutic for him. Now you can see another example, and that is Sister Nivedita. If you read the complete works of Sister Nivedita, I have mentioned this, I'm sure. The complete works are available online in archive.org. You can just download and start reading. Very tough English, very wonderful ideas. For her, this was therapy because on one side, it had a practical use. She was using the money she got from writing in order to finance her school, Nivedita School, which is in Kolkata. Today it is called Nivedita School, one of the foremost schools there. So you can imagine that for her, writing had a practical purpose, but it had another purpose also, and that was the purpose of therapy. because she could write all the ideas which were troubling India under the colonial rule. She also was from London. Although she was Irish, most of her life was spent in England. So she belonged to the colonizers' nation, but she could understand the problems of the colonized India. And she gives therapy for the Indians, the colonized Indians, the slave Indians who were not given independence at that time. Sister Nivedita lived, she came and she lived only for a few years in India. 1911, she was no more at a very young age of 44. So till then, whatever she could do, she did, she achieved, she told Indians. So therapy for ourselves, therapy for others, writing, not only because I want to improve, but writing because somebody who reads it will also benefit. This kind of a social work while writing is very important because it takes you out of your selfishness. It makes you more oriented towards service to others. It takes you towards selflessness, that I don't write for myself, but I write for the benefit of all who read also. I'm benefited and others are also benefited. If you look at Swami Vivekananda's letters, Swamiji was a prolific letter writer. You look at his complete works, you will find all his letters. And there, what do we find? Sometimes he's describing his experiences abroad. Sometimes he's telling people, advising people what to do and what not to do. Sometimes he's scolding them also by saying, you don't know, you don't understand. In this way, what is the personality of Swami Vivekananda can be best found out from his letters. In the letters, he comes closest to us. So you can imagine, by looking at those letters, by following the model of Vivekananda as a letter writer, we can also write like that. Today, because we have all shortcuts, take it easy and quickness, we don't write long letters. But earlier, in the olden days, long letters was something which was written. Even in my childhood, I remember getting letters which were 4 or 6 pages long. Today, 4 sentences nobody wants to write or read. Therefore, we need to know. Now, therapy also implies that writing overcomes some handicap. If you have some difficulty, if you have some disability, some physical problem, there also writing is helpful. In fact, in the pandemic, people are saying, if you write every day, then your immunity will become better because your mind will go away from the problem. Your mind will concentrate on your writing. And in this way, your immunity will become better. So if you are able to do these things, then you will find that writing is great. Any disability, if we take the pandemic as a global problem, disability for everybody, we can't move out, we can't do anything. Like that, we have a great person like, Helen Keller, who had a triple disadvantage. She had no eyes, then she had no speech, she had no hearing. You can read all what she says. And then you have a great English poet like Milton. He became blind. Then he was a great poet, so he wanted to write poetry still. He started dictating to his daughter. He didn't stop writing. He was writing, but not using his own pen. He was using the daughter and her ability to write as his pen. Then we have Dostoevsky, the famous writer of Russia, great classical writer. He also had epilepsy. But imagine the great books which he wrote. If you read them, you will find that no handicap can stop you. Writing gives you strength. Writing makes you strong, It is like having a tonic. These are all the things which we learn from these examples. So if you look at the examples of writers who have written, you will find that if you cultivate the habit of writing, it will be very beneficial to you in life. Now let us talk about three things. One is the types of writing. The second is the problems which we encounter when we want to use writing as therapy. And the third is that how we can overcome and get some benefit from writing. So the types first, then the problems, and finally the benefits. Let me talk about first the types of writing. When we talk about the types of writing, what we are talking about is, as I told you just now, creative writing. Creative writing, or like the gospel, which is, writing about spiritual talks of people. So these abilities are there. But then I gave you the example of Mahendranath Gupta, who used to write a diary. So if all of you cultivate this habit of writing whatever has happened to me today, I gave you one part on self-analysis. So imagine this writing, one page which you're writing about what all you did today, what all you thought today, that is like self-analysis. And it will help you to become better tomorrow. It will help you to improve in the next week, next month, next year, because you have that page, the page with the date of today, and there you can easily see that your abilities will improve. This you can always take, writing a diary every day, one page. Then creative writing. Many of you might be very talented. Since this is being put on the YouTube channel of Ramakrishna Math Pune, Human Excellence, I will give you the creative writing example of Swami Sri Kantanandaji Maharaj, who is the Adhyaksh of Ramakrishna Math Pune. Maharaj has beautiful bhakti poetry which he writes. He just sits down and he writes. I remember in Hyderabad seeing that, in 1 minute, he would have a beautiful poem ready, worshipping God, talking about spirituality, or talking about patriotism, talking about improvement of everybody in this country. You can hear this. I'm sure those songs are also available. I would request Maharaj to keep them also on YouTube, because they are putting so many videos on YouTube. Those who know the languages, Marathi, Hindi, etc., can enjoy. I'm only speaking in English, but I can enjoy all the other things also. So these advantages come to us. Creative writing, the way the mind concentrates, the way the mind takes one small idea, one seed of an idea, and makes it into a big creative output. A novel or a drama or a prose or poetry, all these are creative outputs. I keep giving you examples of Sri Ramakrishna, Sharada Ma. If you know Bengali, you will find that there are hundreds of songs which have been composed about them, praising them. Imagine how much creativity went in the writing of these songs. The mother's prayer, which we sing in the temples, Prakritim Paramam, that was written by Swami Abhedanandaji. He wrote it in Sanskrit and he went running to the mother. The mother was still in her physical frame. He read it out. Mother, I have written a song about you. Then mother was very happy. She said, oh, very nice. Today in our temples all over in Ramakrishna Math and mission centers, this song is sung. Very beautiful song. You can hear it. It is available on YouTube. And it is not difficult to understand because the words are so simple. The ideas are so wonderful. So it was therapy was for the writer, Swami Abhedanandaji. It is therapy for us to whom the treasure of these songs have come. So many songs are there like that. And you can also compose such songs. We have Maharaj here, Jnanadananda ji, who writes so many songs. Many of the songs which are in Bengali, he translates into Telugu also. So all this is therapeutic. You can imagine creative writing. Then we also have, another type, and that is reporting. If you read journalistic writing, that is reporting. Very therapeutic, because when you see a scene, when you go to collect news, or when you attend some function, you need to get out of that, the whole scene which is embedded in your mind. So when you write it out, you feel relaxed. You say, oh, I have completed reporting. I have finished writing. So you can imagine what a relaxation it gives you. It is like your assignment. In a school or college, you're given assignment. And till you finish, you are stressed out. Once you finish, it becomes therapy. You have finished writing, and you will find that you are, now you can relax. So reporting. Then you have project writing. Very often you are given project assignments that you have to do a project in one semester, especially technical courses, etc., have this. Therefore, we need to remember that Therefore, we need to remember that in all walks of life, writing is important. You have to take writing as something which is beneficial, something which is making you better. That is what is the most important thing. So apart from these types of writing, I have given you examples of letters, etc. That also can be done. Exchanging messages, that also can be done. Now we move on to the problems of, writing. Using writing or doing writing at all, these are all big problems. Suppose we want to talk about the therapeutic dimension of writing, how writing is useful to us. Then we have remember that many people do writing reluctantly. I remember hearing the story of a child who was sent to the exam hall. The child was so mischievous that the teacher had to tie the child to the chair and say, now you write the exam. Imagine, the child would not write, would just run away. And then to make the child write, that punishment had to be given, that you tie the child and then you say, write. The child wrote very well, I'm sure, but that hesitation to write, that fear to write, that, postponing writing, I will write tomorrow, I will write another day. Although all of us write a lot, in my career and after my retirement, I continue to write, but still there is this reluctance. We keep postponing by saying, writing some other time. Speaking, so much easier. But remember that writing is different from speaking. And therefore, we need to practice both. If we speak well and not write well, it is not enough. If we write well and if we don't speak well, that also are not enough. Because people will know us by our speech and by our writing. We cannot show our personality in other ways except in our behavior, in our words and actions, and in the thoughts we think, which are expressed again by words and actions. So we need to be very careful, the words which we are using, because LSRW is called verbal communication. Verbal means using words. So we are using words, and that is what is most important. Now we come to, as I was telling you, the barriers, the difficulties. So one difficulty is reluctance. The other difficulty is fear. Oh, if I write, will I be able to write something correct? Or will I make mistakes? I won't write because I don't know how to write well. Hesitation. These are all the barriers which we have. These barriers we can only overcome if we keep trying again and again. Now, unless we try all the time, we cannot get better. And if you prefer speaking to writing, that also is a great barrier. Remember that writing is more accountable. Therefore, we need to concentrate on both and we need to write. Remember, if we write once in a way, once an exam in a semester, that's not enough. Or one, presentation in office, that is not enough. We need to write every day, at least one paragraph every day, at least 10 sentences every day. And they should be ideas generated from our mind, thoughts generated from our mind, not something which we have just copied from somewhere, not something which we have, borrowed from somewhere. That is not what I'm saying. Now, this is the first benefit of writing, that writing is very accountable. In speaking, we can speak and then say, oh, I never said that. Because usually there is no recording. Of course, now online, everything is being recorded. But otherwise, somebody says something and says, no, I never said it. When you write, you cannot retract. You cannot say, oh, I never said it, because it is available in black and white. You cannot say, I never wrote it. Speech is not so accountable. Writing is more accountable. Therefore, writing is important. And when we write, we realize that we are becoming a better human being. We have more clarity of our thoughts. We have more awareness of our own strengths and weaknesses. We have become a better person. Then you have, of course, writing has a great advantage that it can reach forever. There was a time when there were no recording devices. So people could not reach far and wide. The Greek philosopher Plato, he said that speech is most important. Writing is secondary. But remember, today, nobody has heard Plato speaking because his speeches were never recorded. It is his writing which has made him famous. So the writing which is long lasting, the writing which makes you available to a wider audience, that is most important. That also is therapy. When you get appreciation from others, your self-confidence improves. We will talk about self-confidence in one of the parts. But today I'm just mentioning this much, that if you write well, and if somebody tells you you've written very nicely, very inspiringly, then you feel that your level of confidence is becoming better. Then, of course, you have in the field of studies, writing is primary. For 6 months or for 1 year in school or college, you learn something. In 3 hours, you have to write about all what you learned. Can you imagine how important writing is? They're not testing you only on the 6 months, how you responded, how you wrote the test, how you did assignments. No, they are asking you now to write all that and to make it better. That is, to show that aspect of you, which is an improved aspect. You have got educated. Schools, colleges insist on this final examination, which is writing. So in academic fields, writing is important. Then many of you might do research. Youngsters might not know what is research, but as you grow older and older, you do a specialization in a particular subject, you do research. See how much research is going on today on the pandemic. The result of this research is the vaccine. The result of this research is maybe a nasal spray soon, a tablet soon. We don't have to go for a vaccine in, a muscular, using a needle. We don't have to do that. So what is the result of this? That is research. So research writing is very important. Unless you write your research, you don't have clarity. Others don't have awareness of your research. So Research also is a great area. There are many such areas, unless we have creative writing, we cannot have aesthetic sensibility. A good creative writer is a very good human being because they have that aesthetic dimension. You might have heard the great sage Sri Aurobindo. He speaks about this very beautifully. He says that, by writing, our level of the mind goes higher, it becomes better. Like that, you have a great orator like Jiddu Krishnamurti. Like that, you have so many people who are writing. You look at the two, or the, English I'm talking about now, journals of the Ramakrishna Mutt, one journal of Sharada Mutt. This is Prabhuda Bharat and Vedanta Kesari of, Prabhuda Bharat from Mayavati, Advaita Ashram, and Vedanta Kesari from Ramakrishna Mutt, Chennai. Then you have from Sharda Mutt, Delhi, Samvit, writing. Beautiful articles every month, repeated again and again and again, going on for 125 years for Prabhuda Bharat. Just now we celebrated. And Vedanta Kesari was in another form earlier, then it changed form. In your own mother tongue, there might be many journals, many books, writing. So somebody is writing, and that person who's writing is benefiting. Wouldn't you like that? Wouldn't you like your writing abilities to be a part of your self-improvement package? Wouldn't you like to take up this challenge of writing, of getting over your hesitation, your fear, your, you know, postponement that I will do it later, I will do it later? Would you not like to start today itself, writing a little every day? Maybe a few sentences you start with, then it goes into few pages and then few volumes. One never knows how you will evolve, how you will improve, and what you will become. So, this I would like all of you to try, remembering that writing is a wonderful medicine for all our ills. Our physical and mental imbalances can be balanced by writing. Just like God has given us a mechanism in our ear, when we lose our physical balance, if we are falling down, then these organs maintain our balance. So, all the time, it might happen that we have problems. We are falling down, not physically, but in our thoughts. We are getting depressed. We are feeling sad. Then you take to writing, writing as therapy. That is why I thought instead of just talking about writing skills, I should mention the therapeutic dimension, the useful dimension of writing. I hope these self-improvement videos are having some impact. I'm not getting much feedback, although, some of you are watching, you're just saying that we are watching. But I would be very happy if you trace your self-improvement by saying that this half an hour, this is what I have done to improve myself. Otherwise, at the end of it, our revered Swami Sri Kantanandaji will find that after talking to all of you, I have improved myself, but it has had no impact on the youth. Swamiji is very keen that youngsters should work for their own self-improvement. The pandemic has given us time, so let us use this time for self-improvement. Let us cultivate all our abilities. Let us make our abilities better. Thank you and namaste.